What's up everyone, Rich Renegade here, bringing my thoughts and opinions on the Ratchet and Clank movie that has just been released in cinemas as of the 29th of April. I've only just actually gone to see it today, the 2nd of May, so I will say firstly that there will be some spoilers in this in regards to the actual movie and potentially the game and even the original game, but if you do not want to have any spoilers or any little things like that, then by all means please leave the video. But if you have played the game or seen the film or just want to hear my thoughts and opinions on this, then stay tuned because I will just go through this very as briefly as I can and sort of as concise to the point. So in regards to the actual plot, it follows the same plot where essentially it's a reboot where Ratchet meets Clank for the first time. There's this entire plan from Drake that he is wanting to build a planetizer to take parts from each planet that is ideal or perfect for its species, the Blogs, and create an entire planet dedicated to them just themselves. Now essentially this is leaving a lot of other alien races either dead or they're homeless completely, and it's up to Clank actually, because he's actually a defect, to go and alert the Galactic Rangers and try to stop Drake as well as Dr. Nefarious from their evil schemes. Now, in this movie, there's a few things that are actually very good. One of the things being like the movie does look amazing. You can tell there's a lot of sort of heart put into making this film look like, you know, as it should. And with the jokes, a lot of the jokes are actually pretty funny in the actual film. Some of them are a bit like oh teehee. Some of them are actually pretty good the way they're placed. There's certain Easter eggs. There's one bit where Clank, when they're actually traveling to Alero City, or Metropolis as it used to be called, he's trying to identify who Ratchet is, like what type of alien race, because he doesn't know what he is at all. And in Clank's little reticule to the left hand side, it shows Daxter, then it shows Dan Johnson, the creator, and then it shows Sly Cooper. As we're talking Sly Cooper from the Blockade film, you can actually tell the model looks a little different than to the games, which I thought was pretty neat as well. There's a certain bit later on where Quark actually disables the weapons from the actual Starship Phoenix, and when he plugs his little device in to do it, it plays the original PlayStation 1 startup music, which I found was pretty cool. There was another one as well, where very infamous one with Wilhelm Scream, which is even in some games and a lot of movies. One of the troopers in Alero City gets knocked off and has Wilhelm Scream, and then this cop comes on and goes Wilhelm. So there's a few neat things like that. Like I actually took my brother to see it, and he didn't particularly get that one until I explained to him what that is. But there was a few jokes that and this is the thing, like I think the plot, the way they've done the plot is actually pretty good. The difference is that in the original Ratchet and Clank, we're not talking the reboot game here, but the original one, Ratchet was quite selfish to start with. He then eventually learned over the progression of the game that he can't be selfish. If he wants to be a hero and be respected, he's got to put his sort of desires to one side and, you know, rise up and be the hero to save the day. In this film, he's kind of already a good guy, in the sense that he's very likable to begin with, which is okay, don't get me wrong. I actually do like that in the reboot that he is like that, but at the same time, what happened in the original game is that, of course, over the game, Ratchet sort of desires in the original game sort of shown and sort of clanked it and really like it until Ratchet sort of saw sense, and then they worked together and became friends that way. Now, even when Ratchet and Clank they sort of meet up and they're sort of both loners, they don't know really, well, Clank knows he's a defect and Ratchet knows he's a lone back, so they're kind of they're only a few species sort of left alone and brought together essentially by fate, that they're kind of already friendly, and once that does build some of the chemistry up, it kind of breaks the film in that sense, because they're already kind of friends. There's not really too much of an argument as such. The only thing that is constantly being put through the film is brains over brawn, where Quark just wants to charge in and use all of the guns, and so does most of his team, including Ratchet, while Clank and one of the new guys, characters that they meet, do actually just want to say, look, let's take a minute, let's think about where we're going, how we're doing it. But they don't make a big argument about it. It's only like maybe mentioned maybe once or twice in a few bits of the film, and that's really it. And I feel like I could have maybe emphasized that as a point and maybe create a bit of an argument between Ratchet and Clank directly. They really didn't do that at all. However, that being said, I do like the voice actors. You got the original voice actor of Ratchet and Clank from Ratchet and Clank 2 and onward. You got James Arnold Taylor doing the voice of Ratchet. You got David Kaye doing Clank, Jim Ward doing Captain Quark, which was amazing. You got Paul Giamatti doing Chairman Drake, which was a little change in regards to the voice, but I think he handled it pretty well. You then even got Mr. Zorkon actually in the actual movie, which I found was pretty neat. It was pretty hilarious to see him. And one thing that I was quite surprised about, I love the fact they kept Dr. Nevaris' voice, Armin Shimmerman. He was amazing in the film, and weirdly enough, one of the sort of the bigger name characters I didn't really think was actually even going to be in the film until I even saw the trailers, and even in the film, was Sylvester Stallone being Victor Von Ion, which he actually played a decent role, I'm not going to lie. He done the role pretty well, can't say much about it. The voice acting was pretty stellar. The action scenes were actually pretty good for the most part. One of the end fight scenes was pretty awesome because it actually featured the Rhino, and now keep in mind when I went to see it, of course with Civil War and a lot of other films being out around the same time, which is quite bad for the way they released it, but that regardless, the Nefarious actually has the Rhino first, and this is rip you a new one and then trademark, and pretty much every adult in the theater laughed because they kind of knew what that meant, and they feature a lot of the other weapons that maybe aren't even featured within the reboot of the game and are featured in other games. They had like the Thunder Smack, which was originally from All for One. They had a variant of the Walloper, and it was pretty neat how they shown a lot on the gadgets, but they didn't really use a lot of them, or well, they used a lot of them, but the one thing I was surprised they didn't have was the Groovitron, only because of the fact that there's certain gadgets within the Ratchet & Clank series that I feel from, even back from the original Inception up till now, that would have made it, I don't know, it would have made it for more hilarious moments potentially, where maybe Quark has a Groovitron, he throws it down to Ratchet, and Ratchet's trying to talk him out of, being a bad guy whilst he's dancing, trying to hit a Groovitron. Stuff like that could have been quite hilarious. They had even gadgets from Tools of Destruction. He had a tornado launcher, which that was only in that one game, and that was it. But ultimately, though, the film, the way it ends, was pretty awesome. We actually see that Nefarious is now turned into a complete robot like he was in Ratchet & Clank 3 and onwards, and it is opened up for potentially a new movie and or a new game. Ultimately, though, I do think it's very enjoyable if you're a Ratchet & Clank fan. This is the big problem with this film, is that personally, my brother I actually got in the Ratchet & Clank reboot game, and he loves the game to no end, as I do too. And I love the Ratchet & Clank series. I've pretty much been playing it since they've been coming out back in 2002, and I feel really old for saying this, but I feel like there's certain jokes that work. And there's another one where one of the actual people from the Galactic Rangers is looking to sort of quote-unquote train, but they're just playing Ratchet & Clank 3 in the background, the multiplayer or like the story mode in first person. Now, if you haven't played that, you're not going to know who that is at all. You'll have no idea. So there's a few things like that, like the soundtrack with the PlayStation logo, and there's a few other jokes as well that maybe a lot of people wouldn't get if they don't play Ratchet & Clank, or know of the PlayStation characters at least, that aren't that funny. And even like Dan Johnson appearing, me and my brother laughed at it, but a lot of other people didn't, because they didn't know what the jokes are. But besides that, I think if you're a Ratchet & Clank fan, you're going to appreciate the film a bit more. I think that the film is actually quite good. The only flaw is that I do wish there was a bit more conflict between Ratchet and Clank. That kind of wasn't really that much of a conflict at all. But when a planet was destroyed and they failed in their mission, you did kind of really feel it, that that the characters were just sort of disappointed in themselves, and Ratchet was disappointed in themselves. The moral of the story is, that you don't have to do big things, you just got to do the right thing. And the moral of the story was kind of driven in at the very last 10 minutes. It was kind of honed in so much. But ultimately, I honestly have to give it maybe a 4 out of 5. I did really enjoy it. It's probably one of my favourite video game films I've seen, and that is saying something, considering that my favourite video game film is the original Silent Hill, which I know not a lot of people don't really like, but I love that film to no end. And this is coming from someone that maybe has only played a handful of Silent Hill games, to someone that's now played every single Ratchet & Clank game and has seen the Ratchet & Clank movie. I'd say if you aren't a fan or haven't played that many Ratchet & Clank games, and maybe you like the characters, or you like, the sort of zany gadgets and stuff like that, it's a decent film. I would probably recommend maybe seeing it at least, because it is much better than a lot of the other films that have come before, video game wise that is. But tell me what you guys and girls think in the comment section down below, because I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Hopefully we will get a sequel to this film. I don't know how well it's going to do, but we'll have to find out in the next coming weeks, compared to the other films like Warcraft as well, which is another video game film that is actually out as we speak. But there was very, very good story, I think. I just feel like that there wasn't too much of a conflict between Ratchet and Clank. There was a conflict between sort of Ratchet in himself, just leading up to Quark and seeing him as a hero, and Drek and Nefarious was actually quite hilarious, especially when Nefarious using the Sheepinator. Now I know of course in the game they do show cutscenes of it, but they actually splice some of the cutscenes together and certain things don't happen straight after one another. But ultimately, I quite liked it, the characters did their job, the story was actually pretty entertaining, and I got a good kick out of it, so I'd give it a 4 out of 5. But again, tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you agree with anything I have to say or disagree with anything I have to say, then please do tell me. But until the next video review potentially, or even when we know of how well Ratchet and Clank or poorly it's done in the box office, maybe, because we may do a follow-up little video like that if you guys are interested, then we will see you in the next video.